Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, we mark a month into my trip here in Taiwan. I want to compare and contrast some differences I noticed in Taiwan and why I want to pivot my career here. Actually, strike that. Pivot career is good, but there's another thing I can think about as well. I'll get to that in a moment. The number one overbearing difference is that I am autistic. I find that our culture here in Taiwan has much less stressors and triggers than back home in the United States. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll be already having a stressful day. Maybe I got grading on my mind. I'm a professor. I've got a mess in my house on my mind. You got to keep in mind, I'm single. I got to take care of all the dishes, all the laundry, and all that. And at the school, I'm thinking about all these papers I have to grade. Plus, my dishes are piled high. Laundry needs to get done. Maybe I'm even wearing dirty clothes at the moment. And my mind is overflowing, and I accidentally make a mistake because when your mind is like that, it's easy to make a mistake, right? So, for example, you guys remember I talked about how last time when I flew home to the United States, I accidentally pushed the luggage cart to the TSA line. Not a big deal, right? It's not like I accidentally brought a gun there or accidentally brought radioisotopes there. No, it's a shopping cart in the TSA line, and my mind's already overflowing, and then the TSA agent has the nerve to bark at me, "Sir, you can't bring that in there." Now, keep in mind, he knows it's 6 in the morning. He knows that most people in that line either had to wake up really early or just got off of a very long connecting flight. It's San Francisco. Most of the flights that arrive at 6 a.m. are probably international flights, right? And he sees that every day, right? It's not like it's another customer who doesn't know any better, right? And that would probably not play out here in Taiwan. We have a better sense of doing that. Yesterday, or two days ago, I was walking in Taipei, and I was drinking a 2 liter bottle of tea, and I had accidentally tossed it into a bucket thinking it was a recycle can. Turns out somebody was getting ready for some kind of event, and it was no big deal. The guy even pointed out where there was a trash can, and that was good. Just stark contrast. Now, is it a big deal if somebody screams at me? Well, I am autistic. I don't know if it's a big deal for most people, but a scream like that, it could take me hours just for my mental energy levels to return to baseline. And it's a big problem when I have stuff to do. At the airport, maybe it's not the end of the world, but a lot of times, part of the reason that I fall behind on my work, procrastinate, is that I get riled up by stuff like that. I can't focus for if that happened at the office, I'd probably be surfing the web aimlessly for the next 2 hours while I regroup my thought. That's not unusual. And unfortunately, the workplace and the just our public settings are full of triggers just like that. Now, unfortunately, and this is a big one, I attract mosquitoes like crazy. I'd love to go outside, but and you know what the funniest thing is? When I every time I remember a nice vacation, I forget about all the little details that make the vacation help, right? I'll remember my favorite hiking trails, but I'll forget that I get bit by mosquitoes as I'm hiking there, right? I'll remember, for example, not to say this girl was like that, but I'll meet a girl at a vacation destination. I'll remember how beautiful she is, how talented she is, and then I'll forget about all the little arguments that we have about what to have for dinner and all that. And so I always get overly excited, and then it doesn't play out the way I think it does. Leave a comment if you've ever, especially the mosquitoes. I can't believe I forgot about them. Now, after I got bit, oh yeah, that happens too, and it's just a big disappointment. The cost of living here in Taiwan is a lot cheaper, and it allows me to have a social life. Not only that, but here in Taiwan, people are much more frugal. So you're not trying to outcompete other people who are willing to blow through their credit cards just to have a social life, right? And give you an idea of how much financial anxiety I had around spending money for socializing. 2 years ago, I was just starting out my art career. I often hesitated on spending any money for having a social life. And one time I decided I had to go out. I went to a meetup group, and keep in mind, I have a lot of allergies. We went to a taco place, and I looked through the menu, and I like to avoid added sugars. I like to avoid white flours. So the only thing I could have, I noticed that one of them said fish. I said, well, can we get like just some steamed fish? No taco, no anything. And when it came out, it was literally like one small bite of fish, like what they would have put on it. I was thinking that they would at least make one like small fish steak at least. And they had the nerve to charge. Not only they had the nerve to charge me $15, and they asked me to leave a tip as well. And so it's just very upsetting. And I had already put off my social life, and then that. And here in Taiwan, I don't have to worry about that. First of all, people are very thrifty. I was kind of at the event. I should have asked how much would this be, but I didn't want to sound cheap, right? You can't really do that if you're trying to chase girls back home in the U.S., right? Here in Taiwan, you can, because being wise with your finances is something to be proud of here in Taiwan, right? Over in the U.S., everybody's out competing with each other on how much they could spend, right? And that's why we have credit cards, right? Here in Taiwan, most people don't even use credit cards when they go out for a social life, right? Uh, okay, there's that. There's the good climate, no heat wave, no winter snow. Although the mosquitoes, uh, I don't know, but I personally rather deal with mosquitoes than heat wave. I don't know about you guys. Uh, they're both bad, but I think mosquitoes are a lot more tolerable than 115-degree weather or wind chill effects like when I used to live in Rochester, New York. I think it's the lesser of all three of these, I would say. Uh, so we got the mosquitoes, or the good climate. We got cost of living is less. Although I got to point out a caveat, I might not feel the cost of living is so low once I collect a Taiwanese paycheck, though. So maybe instead of pivoting my career, I'll have to find a career that allows me to spend 2 months here every year for dating, for networking, and for other career aspirations, art or whatever. And that might be a better option. That way, I could live like a king for 2 months, have a dating life, and then go home and work for 10 months. That might be okay. Uh, and also the less heightened life, right? Nobody barking orders at me and all that. I am actually thinking of composing a letter to the TSA because I always get triggered every time I go through there, and it doesn't have to happen that way, right? Like I mentioned with the shopping cart, uh, I'm almost thinking of wearing a body cam this time. I'm not going to deliberately make a mistake, but I'm sure something will come up, and maybe I can write to them. I'll wear the body cam when I go through the Taiwanese TSA, and then go home to San Francisco and repeat. That way, I can compare and contrast, and then we can put together a video plus a little bit of an essay. Now, keep in mind that people might say, "Well, you got to deal with it if you want to fly." Well, keep in mind, 3% of us are autistic here in the U.S. In some other countries, it may even be higher. Now, how would you feel if there was some other disability that also affected about 3% that made it hard to go through TSA? Imagine if TSA had ramps that were hard for people in wheelchairs to go through. Imagine if they had things that required you to not be colorblind. Can you imagine the uproar it would cause? Right? Imagine it had something that would create a problem if you were. Imagine the X-ray machines wouldn't work on you if you were dark skinned, right? Can you imagine the uproar that would cause, right? If only dark skinned people had to be patted down because the X-ray machines didn't work properly, right? Imagine if being too short or too tall made it difficult to get on the plane, right? Can you imagine the uproar that would cause, right? So it's something that deserves some training at least, right? And I think it could, like I said, Do I mind not pushing the shopping cart into the TSA? Not at all. What I mind is the triggers that these agents give every time you do something that's off a little bit when it doesn't have to happen that way. Save those sparkings when somebody actually does bring a weapon or does have a threat of some sort, right? When somebody just makes a minor mistake, it's kind of like if somebody accidentally put their shirt on backwards, right? You don't need to bark like that, right? It's funny, You point it out. You might not even want to embarrass them, but just point it out gently. Yeah, you might want to go to the bathroom and change your clothes, right? This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.